to think about and to talk about how placemaking and the arts and how economic development are all connected, and how the city, in this case with UniverCity Year Alliance, is investing in significant organizations in our community to help further a vision that our community hopefully will employ with the assistance with our counterparts at UW, as well as potentially UW Extension and UWSP and other university resources through the UniverCity Year Alliance partnership. So we're very excited, again, that you could be here, make time out of your evening. I know it's a tough time of the year for everyone. And so without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Gavin from UniverCity Year Alliance and to talk a little bit about what to expect as we go forward into the program. And I was going to turn it over to Ann just after that. So,
Great. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Mayor Zach. Call him Mayor Zach. I mean, I'm so like worried that I can't say brewing very well.
You just said it.
The wrong
Yeah, you did say
emphasis,
it.
the wrong
Not many people can
syllable,
say
you know, and I'm going to say it wrong at some point. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming. Again, my name is Gavin Luter. I'm managing director of an initiative on campus at UW-Madison called the UniverCity Alliance. I'm going to repeat a little bit for those of you all who heard me last Wednesday, but I'll give you kind of the truncated version. The reason why Mayor Zach is saying the UniverCity Year Alliance program is because the initiative that I lead on campus is called the UniverCity Alliance. Basically, my job is to help get UW-Madison organized, which is a really difficult job, for basically anybody who wants to work with local governments and cities. And as you can probably imagine, a lot of people across campus want to do that, but they don't all know each other. So we're kind of creating a network on campus of people who want to work with local government. So if you can think of that as being like the WHO, we're kind of organizing the WHO on campus who's interested in working with local governments.
Wow.
Yeah, right, not the WHO, you know, the WHO. Anyway, and then the what it is that we do is we run a program called the UniverCity Year. And by the way, you don't have to be a city to participate. We just thought it was kind of cute. Although it's cool that you are.
It's hard to Google.
I know, it is kind of hard to Google. And it also turns out there are like some places in Canada that there's like a development called the UniverCity, and it's like a part of town in some random Canadian city. Anyway, okay, so UniverCity Year is quite simply a process that local governments can apply to for a 3-year partnership with UW-Madison. And they basically say, you know, hey, we want some thought partners, we want some help on issue X, Y, and Z, and we get to know you over a year, and we get to know what exactly it is that you want from us. So kinds of things that you want student help on, faculty expertise, all that kind of stuff. And then we try to match them quite simply with faculty, staff, students on campus who can work on those issues over an entire academic year. So Mayor Zach found out about us. Basically, he couldn't avoid me at conferences because I kept seeing him, and he was like, oh, you know, like this annoying guy, go away, go away. Anyway, so I broke him down and was like, you know, I really, you know, he's also involved in some other networks, an organization that I work for called COWS at UW-Madison that brings together mayors who are committed to sustainability, equity, and democracy. He knew about us through that.
Does COWS stand for something?
No, COWS doesn't stand for anything. It used to stand for the Center on Wisconsin Strategy, but now it's like just COWS. You know, like I guess like AARP no longer means the American Association of Retired People. It's just AARP. They didn't want to exclude people. Yeah, whatever. So we're just COWS. And my email address is the coolest email address I've ever had. Gavin@cows.com. Yeah, my family could not believe that I have an email address that is cows. Anyway, so Mayor Zach knew about us, and he applied for Wisconsin Rapids to be a part of the UniverCity Year program. And the 3 issues that he identified were arts and humanities, economic development, and branding and identity development for Wisconsin Rapids. Basically to say like, hey, can you help us think through like, how are we doing arts and humanities as a community? Can we bring some more coherence to it? What is the future of our economic development strategies? And how do we brand ourselves? And what is our core identity? How do we rethink that? And once we got to talking, we realized like it's really hard to kind of like separate these. And that's part of the reason why I reached out to Ann at Arts Wisconsin. And unfortunately, my other colleague who couldn't be here because she's sick with some sort of like weird avian flu situation. I don't know. Not really avian flu, I'm just kind of kidding. Sherry Wagner Henry at the Bolt Center for Arts Administration at UW-Madison, which I don't know if you all know that. It's an MBA program for people who want to go into arts and the business side of arts. So I reached out to them and said, hey, Wisconsin Rapids wants to do this stuff. Would you all be interested in kind of, tagging along, listening to what's going on? So we had a couple of initial conversations. And what became clear is that we really needed to get a little bit more input from folks to figure out what is it that we really want to get down to and work on over the next academic year. So we are kind of in phase 1, year 1 of the University Year partnership. And we're kind of kicking off, letting people know, we want to be as transparent as possible, this is happening. And basically over the next day and a half, I guess today's kind of the half day and then tomorrow is like the full day, we're going to try to get a sense from you all about kind of what do you think your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges are as a community, and how can we really take some kind of visions that you all have for the community and really pare them down into concrete projects that we can work on over the next academic year. That sounds to me a little daunting, it may sound daunting to you, but I promise that we can do it. And I have evidence, we've done it in other communities before. And also, don't just think of this as like it has to be within X amount of time frame. We're not going anywhere. So if it takes us a little longer to get there, that's okay. We're not, UW-Madison's been around for
wherever there is.
Yeah, wherever there is. It's more the journey. But at some point, and I tell people, I work really well when I have a very clear question that you want answered. And then, because faculty, when I take things and shop it around, they're like, okay, but what do they need? Like, do they need a report? Do they need a drawing? Do they need a marketing campaign? Whatever it is. So we want to get to like, I want Wisconsin Rapids to be the best place where everybody gets along, down to like, we need to restart this initiative and get a business plan for X, Y, and Z. So that's kind of the idea behind this. I've invited Ann Katz along for the ride because I think Wisconsin Rapids is a really interesting place that has been doing a lot of rethinking about its identity, and there's a really thriving art scene here. And so when you talk about the connection between economy, and Ann is going to talk about this in a second, talk about the connection between economy, economic development, and arts and humanities, that's really Ann's...
And branding.
And branding. That's really Ann's deal, and she's going to explain a little bit more about that. Then so that's the first part of the evening, and then the second part of the evening is we're going to talk about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges in Wisconsin Rapids from your perspective. We have a little activity that we'll do, and then the idea is that this is going to bleed into tomorrow. We realize that not everyone is going to be here, in the audience tomorrow, as everybody is today. But again, this is not the last time you're going to see us. This is not the last time you're going to hear about this. So you will still have an opportunity to participate. Tomorrow is going to be the appreciative inquiry, is what we call it. It's a fancy word for saying like kind of concrete visions that you have, turning them into opportunities that will eventually become projects, and we'll lead through about a 3-hour process tomorrow. So that's the truncated version, I think. I don't think I went longer than the last time I was here. Are there any questions before we get started? We are totally open to working with other colleges and universities in this process. So if anyone in here might think, what the heck is UW-Madison doing here? We have UW-Stevens Point right up the road. Yes, absolutely, we want to get them involved in some way, shape, or form. I know a couple of people who work with Extension. They were actually part of the application process. Nancy Turek is one of the Extension folks. I know people at UW-Stevens Point. We just got to have a concrete ask and a way for them to get involved before I just say, hey, do you want to do this thing with Wisconsin Rapids? And then they will again be like, what exactly do you need? What do they need done? And so that's when I need to have something concrete in my hands that I can take to them. This year we have projects running with Marquette University, UW-Milwaukee, UW-River Falls. So we are not, this is about higher education being useful for a change, and not just being these pointy-head, doofuses who just profess about theory, right? This is about concrete, actionable stuff where students learn stuff, we get something good from it, and we can all, feel better about the world. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over.
I
Yeah,
was
Zach.
going to say one, and from a question, people might be saying, how much does this cost? How
Yeah,
does this
yeah,
come into this
oh, that's a
community?
good- yeah.
I forgot to mention it, but the Ho-Chunk Nation is underwriting a portion of the cost. They were gracious enough to step forward with a contribution. Jim isn't here tonight, but from Ho-Chunk Nation, actually from Ho-Chunk Nation Nakusa Casino. So not the legislative branch of the Ho-Chunk, but the actual casino side. So they're just very interested in populating the area and promoting kind of the community development that we're all a part of in our various roles that we work within. So I just want to put a plug in for those folks.
Yeah, and so the city, the local government has to make some kind of an investment. We generally ask for somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 per what we call thematic areas. We don't put that on our website because look, if you don't have $20,000, you can't make it to $30,000. We're not going to say no. But the idea is that the city puts in something, local government puts in something. The idea is that you can kind of build. If anybody is in the funding community or has connections with the funding community, the idea is to say, hey, the city's investing X. Would you be able to also put up X? And I mean, this is a whole question that we need to be thinking in the back of our mind is, these projects will, they will cost human capital and, financial capital. So we need to be thinking about like how much is the community willing to invest in seeing these projects out. That's a whole separate thing, but we do want to keep the financial part in mind, and the city is investing. And yeah, I mean, we also have private funders. We do not ride only on local government contributions because local governments are not going to be able to pay everything that it really costs to run a full program. So we get kind of a contribution, and then we find other funders to kind of chip in. So we have alumni. If anybody's a UW-Madison alumni and wants to run a program, talk to me afterwards. Anyway, and we also have like American Family Insurance has helped us get off the ground and stuff like that. So okay, without further ado,
I think it's important to really stress the partnership and
Yeah.
collaborative nature of this.
Yeah.
So none of this work, this huge work of transforming and activating can be done in a vacuum or by itself. So the fact that the city has stepped up, the tribe is a partner, that's a huge thing to applaud. So
yeah, absolutely.
it shows that there's a commitment by many people who are concerned with the community's future, and I think that's a really important part of this whole process. So way to go.
Thank you.
Way to
Now
go.
I'm going to turn it over to
Okay.
Ann Katz, and she's going to do her presentation, and I'll be out of the way.
And then,
All right,
okay,
thanks.
thank you, Gavin. So
Yeah.
thank
Would it be
you.
beneficial to do introductions for your benefit?
Oh, that would be great.
I didn't do that for my
Really
portion
quickly.
because I figured we'd do that when we got back from the tour, and I didn't, so.
That's okay. That would be very helpful. Go. Sorry.
I'm Ina Whitehead. I'm the president for the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Lucy Ronells. I'm the president for the Wisconsin Rapids Community Theater Board.
Still Martha Bora, artistic director here.
Eric Brittnacker, Performing Arts Center Director. Steve Kipfer, the Central Wisconsin Cultural Center Board Director.
Connie Tomsky, President of Friends of Rapids Music FRM.
You in the back.
Oh, sorry. Kim Kosick, I'm just a resident.
Andy Barnett, Macmillan Library. Will Haskell, Macmillan Library, beautification, and a lot of other things.
Excellent.
Madeline Petz, I'm with Community Development with the City of Wisconsin Rapids.
Jason Greenberg, Wood County Planning and Zoning Director.
I'm Bill Clendenning. I'm on the county board in Wood County and also on the town of Grand Rapids and on the library board.
Meredith Plecker, Executive Director, Wisconsin Rapids Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have met.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Jamie Gabriel. I'm the administrator for the town of Rome.
Molly, where is the student from Madison?
Claire Kabishik, and I'm on the beautification group.
I'm her husband. I get dragged into a lot of stuff.
Volunteer. Thank you.
I'm Mike Barrett, Wisconsin Rapids Community Theater, past president, board member, local business.
Well, this is good, because now I have a sense of who's in the room, and you all wear many hats. Sometimes you're dragged along, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to talk about the intersection of the arts and community, the arts and creativity, economic development, and branding, because those are the three areas. And I'm actually, to be honest with you, I'm not going to talk about the arts. Okay, I am going to talk about the arts, but it's not really about the arts. It's about the 21st century economy, the changing nature of the changing community that you live in and that we all are living in, and how we're trying to put our hands around these changes and steer them, which is what UniverCity Year and all of the collaborations that you're doing are part of, are all about. So let's see. Which one do I push? Oh yeah, there we go.
Just one forward.
So Arts Wisconsin is the state's community cultural development organization. We are all about the fact that everyone everywhere should have the opportunity, I don't know where I should stand, but I'll just keep wandering around, should have the opportunity to participate in and benefit from the arts, and that every community in this residence should benefit from the assets. So we talk about community cultural development, asset-based development, creative economy development, 21st, it's really all about 21st century development. The arts are not something separate from everything else. The arts are part of everyone's lives and everyone's aesthetics. If you all introduced yourselves, and some of you are directly involved in arts activities from how you identified yourself, but all of you, whether you think of yourselves as as artists or performers or whatever or not, you are all creative in some way. You might be a really good cook, you might do woodworking, you might sing in the church choir, something. But we really are all about this whole idea that Wisconsin is an incredibly creative place. We live in a very changing world, and we're all about connecting people so that organizations, businesses, communities, the state as a whole thrive. We are really all about the Wisconsin idea come to life. Everybody knows what the Wisconsin idea is, right? It's amazing. I go places, especially places that are close to the Twin Cities and to Chicago. They don't really know what the Wisconsin idea is. And I just want to say it, because I'm a huge fan of the Wisconsin idea, that it's the idea that we're all one big state, that in terms of the university, not university.
I know.
So confusing. That the resources of the university should be available to everyone, but I really think of it as that we are really all one big state. I have had the privilege of being the director of this organization for over 25 years, almost 25 years. The organization has been around since the early 90s, and I have pretty much been everywhere in the state. I can tell you where the best pie and ice cream is everywhere in the state, because local food, local art, it's all connected. It's really all about culture. But I'm not a native of Wisconsin. I was born and raised in New York. And believe me, if anyone had told me when I was 25 that I would end up living in Wisconsin and I'm married to a man from South Dakota, happily, I would have said, what? I don't even know what those words mean. But it's all worked out well. I'm a huge fan of Wisconsin. I'm a huge fan of the people and the place. And I have been able to travel around for the last almost 25 years and experience it and help in some way. So that's, it's really fun. So just to go on about this is somewhere on Bascom Hall, I think, on campus in Madison, and it talks about the sifting and winnowing of ideas. That, again, that's what the Wisconsin idea is all about. Wisconsin actually has a very strong and very deep involvement in the arts over the course of history. We've always been a place where the arts spring from the grassroots. In the mid part of the last century, there was something at the university called the Office of Community Arts Development, which was based in the ag school, not the art school, and I love that part of it. that the leaders were so enlightened that they really put their money where their mouths were in terms of helping people around the state invest, be part of the arts. And so we come out of that tradition and that history that everyone is creative in some way, that we all should be able to benefit from the arts, and our job is to be advisors, consultants. Really, we serve the people of Wisconsin to help figure out how people can be involved in the arts and how communities can benefit. And more, it's all about how communities can use the assets that you have to really benefit. So the big issues facing Wisconsin, as you know, I'm going to stand up here actually, then I won't block things.
Yeah, and
How about that?
then you won't trip yourself as well. I'm far more comfortable with that.
Okay, I'm going to stand here. As you know, the big issues facing Wisconsin and facing Wisconsin Rapids on the community level. Our changing economy. So this is the way I describe it. Our old economy is there. And Wisconsin, for better or for worse, Wisconsin Rapids is a really good example of the changing economy. So paper mill town for many, many years, that kind of worked. People could work for the mill, you could have a good job, you could have benefits, you could have a pension. Things hummed along. Family owned it. So that's our history, that's the 20th century. And that's not just Wisconsin Rapids or Wisconsin, that's kind of the global economy. Since the end of the war, until about 2008, the US has been a manufacturing powerhouse, and our manufacturing and agriculture really kept us going. Then came the crash, 2008, and now we were already changing this way, but now we're really focused on the 21st century economy, which is about, and I'll talk more about that, creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, imagination, all of those words. Our systems are still basically built on finding a factory, giving people tax break, I'm exaggerating, but giving people tax breaks to come and locate in your community, build a factory, and then everything will be great. But really, that's not really going to happen anymore. And I'll talk about some of the data that kind of shows where we are. But our economy is moving that way. Sometimes I say that I've been talking about the creative economy since the last millennium, which I have. But now, people are saying, wait, what did you just say about that? Could you say that again? Because now it's obvious. In the southern part of the state, I say, GM is not coming back to Janesville, Oscar Mayer has left Madison, the paper industry in this part of the state is much different than it was. Okay, so what's it gonna be? So that is what Wisconsin Rapids is dealing with right now, and we sort of have to shift everything to go that way, which over time will happen. One of my favorite phrases is, no offense meant to anybody here, change happens one funeral at a time. And by that I mean the system has to change, and it will change because people will not be there to keep it that way, and the younger people will move it that way. So we're kind of in the middle of that right now. We're right in the middle of this change. That means that our workforce is changing, and what people need to know to be part of the 21st century workforce. Our education system, again, exaggerating for effect, is sort of based on the 19th century model, the industrial age, training people to be, again, exaggerating, sort of factory workers and being in that manufacturing age, when really what we need to train people to be or give people experiences about are being creative and and innovative and entrepreneurial. And so that means our educational system has to change as well. Healthy, vibrant communities, quality of life is now an economic development tool. And people will come and live in Rapids in this area because there are things to do, a thriving art scene, there are parks, there are bike trails, there's a river. People want to live in places where there are things to do, where there are good schools for their kids, where they can know their neighbors. And so the whole idea of community as something that you sell has always been a part of that selling, but now it's even more important. And so access and equity are also huge, important, not just words, but ideas, that everybody gets to participate. As the community theater people and everybody else who sells tickets could tell you, if you determined the price of a ticket on what the market would bear, nobody could afford it. So you have to be able to make things affordable so everybody can benefit. And there has to be community support for a cause so that people can benefit. And so the whole idea that everybody gets to participate is huge because we are facing inequality and people not being able to participate, not just in the arts, but in all aspects. So those, here, I'm just going to go down here. So the 21st century economy is what we talk about. The creative economy is the 21st century economy. Yes, we're talking about the arts, but the paper industry has to be as creative and innovative as any other industry. Every business needs to think of new ideas, new things to market, new products to make every day of the year. It's not just that there are creative people here working in the arts, is that business is transforming, education is transforming, community is transforming, and so creativity is the hallmark of all of those. Wisconsin, and I can, as I said, I've been everywhere, so I could give you stories, and I will give a few stories at the end. We have everything we need to be recognized globally as a creative powerhouse. It's amazing, the creativity that's in the state, and again, that's the best part of my job, that I get to be part of it. Arts education is a huge part of that, because the arts impart the skills that people need to succeed in the 21st century. Creative thinking skills, ability to come up with ideas, ability to work by yourself and as part of a team. All of those are qualities that the arts impart. And so arts education as part of our kids' education is a huge thing. Again, widespread throughout the state. Creativity is as evident in Wisconsin Rapids or a small town all the way on Lake Superior as it is in Milwaukee and Madison. And again, we have it everywhere. The thing about our creative economy strategy, the fact that Wisconsin Rapids is going through this planning process, again, with partners and collaborators, with help from the public and private sectors, is significant, because that's what's happening on the local level. It's not necessarily strategic or coordinated around the state. It's not, in fact. And that's what we're working on, is getting the state to recognize that we invest in the paper mill, we invest in Foxconn, and we invest in our resources of people and organizations and businesses. Oklahoma has a program called the State of Creativity that is run by the business sector, which is all about showing that Oklahoma is a creative state. In fact, I once was at a reception, and the chair of this movement was a banker from Oklahoma City, I think, and I said to someone, oh, you know, Oklahoma calls itself a creative state. And he said, oh, we don't call ourselves a creative state, we are a creative state. So that's the kind of person we need to go and you know, bring that message. Louisiana has based a lot of its recovery from Katrina on promoting local food and local music, local culture. Florida, a lot of states have sort of creative industries councils, and they actually focus on creative endeavors, and they put money towards it. This is what we're working on. Everybody loves the arts. Everybody can say, yes, yes, we want to support creativity. Gotta get the money. So we are an advocacy organization. We do some lobbying of the legislature. We work very closely with the League of Municipalities, which the mayor is president of the board. And that's a great partnership, because local mayors are as concerned about this whole idea of fostering creativity, branding your community, making good on that brand promise as anybody else. And so other states are doing a lot more than we are, and we really need to step up. So we are working on that. Again, the word I use a lot is investment. Investing in our kids, investing in our communities, investing in education, investing in creativity, investing in access and equity so that everybody gets to participate. It's not that you throw some money at an arts venture and that's kind of nice, here's some money and go do something nice with it. It's that you're investing in people, you're investing in businesses, you're investing in that creative spirit in a community, and that pays off. And that's why, again, the partnerships and collaborations that are happening with this venture that you're doing with UniverCity Year that's significant, because it means that everybody has a stake in it. So the arts and cultural industry, and I'll give you some statistics in a minute, and I'll talk about what we mean when we say this. It's a local industry, so people you know and places you know. This is all about attracting visitors and attracting people to live here, live, work, and play, as we say. It's all about engaging people. It's all about lifelong learning, leveraging revenue, jobs. Again, the arts, the reason that the arts are important is because the arts are important. Humans have been expressing themselves creatively since the beginning of time. You can't stop that creative spirit. There were orchestras in the concentration camps. People come together through artistic ventures in all ways and forever, always. If there was no money at all, those things would happen. Theater would still happen. Music would still happen. People would still draw. All 5-year-olds are artists, right? And dancers and musicians. But you really need to have that investment so that, and consider that you're making an investment in actual industry in a sector to be able to make everybody be able to participate and to keep it going. So this is the language that we use. I mean, I'm a theater person. I'm not an economic development, I am now, but I didn't start as an economic development person. I started as someone who's always been involved in the arts. And what I've learned is that it's not about the arts that are over here. It's about that whole creative spirit. So I'm just going to go through this. So I keep mentioning the creative economy, and what does that mean? I'll give you some definitions, because there's not one definition. We're kind of at the beginning in this dawn of the 21st century of figuring out what this new economy is. And so there are way smarter people than me writing and thinking about this. And I have plenty of links and resources that I can make sure that Gavin has, that over time he can get to you, and so that you can spend even more time trolling around the web, but looking at what people are writing. But there's a lot of really good thinkers working on this now, because again, this is the 21st century economy. So when we say creative economy, we mean leveraging cultural assets, we mean strengthening the social fabric of the community. That's a group called ArtSpace, which works on kind of real estate development around arts projects. They're based in the Twin Cities. The New England states have done a lot with creative economy development. They have programs that are all about this. They have, the mayor of Boston has a creative economy advisor. They talk about the enterprises and people involved in the production and distribution of goods and services with aesthetic, creative, emotional, and I'll give you some more statistics about that. But again, we're trying to define what we mean when we say the 21st century economy, the creative economy. The other English-speaking countries have done way more than we have in terms of community cultural development. And so, at least they have. Who knows what's going to happen with Britain now, but they talk about the socio-economic potential of activity around creativity. Jerry Hemd was a professor at UW Superior. He was an economics professor. He was also a member of the Wisconsin Arts Board, the state agency, and he talked about the intersection of creative people, creative businesses, workforce, and creative communities. And you put those together, just like you put together arts and creativity, economic development, and branding, and that churn is the creative economy. It's not fluid, it's not linear, it's not smooth. It's churning all the time. Again, I talk about asset-based community development, and again, I can send lots of links to really interesting discussions about all of this. But local assets as the primary building blocks of sustainable community development. That's really what you're talking about in this whole process. You're talking about how to recognize, uphold, invest in, and sustain the assets that make your community unique and authentic. Whether it's the community theater, whether it's the parks, whether it's the riverfront, whatever it is. You want to make sure that these things do not happen because little chipmunks make them happen, right? They happen because there's blood, sweat, and tears put into the production of things. And so you have to make that investment. I'm glad that Mark is nodding her head. We also talk about creative placemaking. That's kind of a subset of the creative economy. Art Place America is a funder that has been working for the last, I think, 10 years on funding these kinds of creative placemaking projects. Actually, the Encourage Foundation got a grant about maybe 5 years ago, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, to start planning around the Tribune building from Art Place. So that was a recognition from a national funder that there was this important project going on in Wisconsin Rapids. The National Endowment for the Arts is the federal agency. Again, they have funding, they have people, they do research, they have smart people writing about things around this creative economy, and I'll send you all these things. Really, we're talking about what makes a great place. And again, it's not linear or smooth, right? It's a churn. So and I can send this so that people can look at it more, but you talk about the uses and activities in a space, so everything, that things are fun to do, that there's a certain number of things to do. You talk about safe and welcoming communities, connected communities, so places that have walking paths and bike paths, and places where you can meet each other walking and not just being in your cars. talking about sociability, again, being a welcoming, thriving community. You put all of those together, and again, it's not, it's always changing, but that's what makes a great place. And those are the things you have to work on, all of those aspects. So the whole idea of measuring what we mean when we talk about the arts is a fairly new area of research. But there are some important numbers that I will throw out at you. So the Americans for the Arts, the national organization, and the state agency, the Wisconsin Arts Board, have done a study of the nonprofit arts organizations in the state for the last 25 years. Actually, every 5 years there's another study. And this latest one, which came out in 2017, showed that there was a $657 million impact. Now that's not the ticket sales or exhibit fees from an organization. That's money that people pay for parking and for restaurants and for the babysitter and for the gas that they spend going to and from an arts event. And so all of that, and this is probably undercounted, is an actual impact. Organizations like the Community Theater and the Performing Arts Center collect sales tax. Wisconsin is one of very few states that requires sales tax to be paid on tickets sold to live events. And so our organizations are providing a service in terms of collecting sales tax and giving it to the state, and providing it for the state so that the state can pay for its services. And they generate revenue. So it's not only that the organizations put on wonderful entertainment and interesting things to participate in, is that there's an economic benefit to having a community theater, a performing arts center, a music festival, whatever it is, an art gallery. There's an actual benefit in terms of dollars spent in and out. Dun & Bradstreet is the company that tracks business development in this country, and Americans for the Arts took different creative industries, museums, architecture, visual arts, motion pictures, and they put it into a map. Now this is probably undercounted, because as a nonprofit organization, unless you apply for state or federal funding, you probably don't have a Dun & Bradstreet number necessarily. So I'm always encouraging people to get Dun & Bradstreet numbers. But all of these dots represent businesses where people have full-time jobs. Now, let me say two things. One is that it's probably undercounted, because not everybody has a Dun & Bradstreet number. But also, where there's this white space, it doesn't mean that there's not stuff going on. It just means that there's not necessarily a business. There's a lot of community stuff going on, but there's not necessarily a business where somebody has a job or a paid job, a volunteer job. But again, we're talking about several thousand businesses, many thousands of people. Now this is one way to count this information. I'll show you another way in a minute. But again, this shows that there are people who make their living in jobs related to arts endeavors. The latest information that I love to spread around is from the U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Economic Analysis. See, aren't the arts fun? I didn't get into this to do research, but this is really interesting stuff, actually. The Bureau of Economic Analysis and the Department of Commerce and the National Endowment for the Arts have been working together to measure what we're talking about when we talk about the impact of arts industries. So they took 35 different industries related to the arts, nonprofit organizations, design, architecture, those kinds of, and they put them into a much more robust system. And those industries provide $804 billion worth of economic impact for the country. More than agriculture, transportation, and warehousing. That's impressive. And when you look at Wisconsin, it's 9.7 billion with a B, economic impact. So that's impressive. And the really impressive thing is the 94,000 jobs. Again, there are different ways to count things, but 94,000 jobs in the arts, creative industries, are more than the beer industry, which is 63,000, the biotech industry, which is 35,000, and the papermaking industry, which at the moment is about 31,000. So that research was done most recently in March, and we started spreading it around in May. And it's amazing when you say it's more than the beer industry. People say, what? What? But again, the state has industries that we invest in. Government invests in, and the public and private sectors invest in these industries. We should be investing in the creative industries if it's already 94,000 jobs, even without trying. So this is the kind of statistic that we try to throw out there as much as possible, combined with the stories. And I think, oh yeah, so now I'll get to a few, I'll finish up with a few stories. So our job is to go around the state and help communities like Wisconsin Rapids, I won't say figure it out, start to figure it out. Figuring it out. There's no community that has figured it out, let me just say that. There's no community that doesn't have to think about where are the jobs, where are the people, where are the education. Everybody is in the figuring out stage. So I'm giving you examples of 3 different places that we've worked with that are in a very similar situation as Wisconsin Rapids. Figuring out how to make the most of your assets and for economic, educational, and civic gain. So, Wanakee is a suburb of Madison. It used to be a farming community, now it's a suburb of Madison. So it's Todd. 7 or 8 years ago, the village administrator came to me and said, well, we want to do something with the creative economy. Can you help us? Sure. And so we started having community, just like this, exactly like this, having community meetings, making presentations, talking about research, talking about planning, figuring out who lived in the community, what kind of partners are there. The thing that I was most impressed by was that the village board, which you know is a village board of a small town, probably never thought about the creative economy before. They allocated money every year for something called, they still do, something called the Wanakee Creative Economy Initiative. I am extremely impressed when a local government allocates money, just as the city of Wisconsin Rapids is investing in this process and other partners. Again, putting your money where your mouth is actually says something. This initiative continues, and actually they've just created something called Create Wanakee, which kind of takes all the components of the initiative and is going to make it even bigger. They haven't sprung forth with 500 jobs at one fell swoop. They haven't transformed their community, but they have done a number of different projects that have raised the profile of the community, showed the community overall how creative it is and who lives there, and helped to brand the community as a creative place. Now, if you've ever been to Wanakee, as you come into town and leave, there's a sign in a Swiss design format that says, "The only Wanakee in the world." And that's been their slogan for forever. And Todd, the village administrator, said, if I ever try to change that, they'll fire me. So they're not changing that. That is the heritage, they're not changing that. But they have done public art on the main street. There's a business that has goats on the roof, like Al Johnson's in Sister Bay. So that the first public art thing they did on Main Street was goats, and then they did barns. And then they did trains, because Wanakee used to be a place where the trains came. So they've had a public art project every summer. This is a new artwork at the high school done by a national artist that a significant amount of money was raised to create this artwork. Then they created this Create Wanakee brand. They've had imagination celebrations where artists in the community get to show off their work. They've done pop-up galleries around the holidays so artists can sell their work. They've done a lot of research. They have a cultural plan. They're progressing with a lot of different strategies under this whole creative economy initiative that help them figure out how to use their assets. So it's a small community. Do I need to go fast?
Yeah, we're gonna try to get out of here around 8.
Okay, I'm gonna talk, I'm just gonna go through two more.
Sorry.
And then I'm gonna be done. Sorry.
The
second place that I want to just mention, and again, I have lots of information, is Wapaka. A city of 6,000 people. We worked with them a few years ago to do a cultural plan. The city was involved in investing in it. A lot of partners, the local arts community really ran it. They've come out, I gave you the front page of the cultural plan. They have a whole plan that now there's a group of concerned community citizens and public officials that are working on this plan. They do a huge amount of public art. This is a crosswalk they did this summer. So again, it hasn't been linear or smooth, and they could tell you all the things that worked and didn't work. But Wapaka is another place that has kind of gathered its resources. The city was a partner, private partners, and is moving forward with that strategy. And the last place, and again, I'm working with the village of Pleasant Prairie, which is a suburb of Kenosha, which doesn't have it's not really a place. They don't really have a place. They have some housing developments, and I mean, it's very nice, but they really want to be a place, right? They want to actually have a center where people can talk to each other, and stores, and so now they're working on actually developing a downtown in a place that didn't have anything like that. So this is their comprehensive plan. Every community has to have a comprehensive plan, mandated by the state still, yes? So part of their comprehensive plan is to develop an art center, invest in the community assets, investigate how to grow the assets. So I just put that there just to show you that it is now written down on paper as a fundamental part of their comprehensive plan to work on developing their creative assets. So all of these are things that Rapids is already doing, could do, will be part of this whole process, but you're not alone. So that's it. I just wanted to give those examples. Again, everyone is going through this. We're all trying to figure it out. I give Wisconsin Rapids a huge amount of credit and applause for embarking on this process, and we're a resource. Call on me anytime. Okay, thank you.